I showed up alive to the will reading after everyone thought I died. When my sister realized I'd inherit Dad's $75 million fortune, she had a heart attack right there. Take a quick pause, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching this from. It's amazing seeing this community grow across the world. I watched my own funeral from across the street, rain soaking through my jacket as strangers filed into Greater Hope Baptist Church. My sister Naomi stood at the entrance in designer black, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief that probably cost more than my rent. She looked devastated. She looked like she'd practiced in front of a mirror. 3 months ago, I'd been driving home from Dad's lake house when my car went off Crescent Bridge during that storm. They found the wreckage 2 days later, mangled beyond recognition. They found my purse, my phone, even strands of my hair caught in the shattered windshield. What they didn't find was my body. The river current was strong, they said. It wasn't uncommon for bodies to wash up miles downstream, or never surface at all. Except I wasn't dead. I was in St. Mary's Hospital in Greenville, 200 miles away, pulled from the water by a trucker named Dean who'd seen the whole thing. Severe hypothermia. Broken ribs. Traumatic brain injury that left me in a coma for 6 weeks. When I finally woke up, I had no ID, no memory of my name for the first 2 days, and no idea my entire family had already buried an empty casket. The hospital called me Jane Doe until my memories trickled back in fragments sharp as glass. The arguments. Naomi's face when I'd confronted her about the missing money. By the time I was coherent enough to explain who I was, I'd been officially dead for 47 days. And I'd started to wonder why nobody had looked harder for my body. Dad died 2 weeks after my accident. Heart attack, Naomi told the press, brought on by the grief of losing his youngest daughter. Lawrence Bennett, real estate mogul, philanthropist, beloved community leader. The man who'd built an empire from 3 rental properties in the South Side and turned it into $75 million worth of commercial real estate across 5 states. I'd been his favorite. Everyone knew it. Naomi hated me for it. She was the eldest, the one who'd gone to Spelman, who'd married Trevor Langston from the Good Langstons, who threw charity galas and sat on nonprofit boards. He did everything right. But Dad and I understood each other. We'd spend Saturdays touring properties, him teaching me about load-bearing walls and market trends and how to read people's desperation in their eyes when they needed a space but couldn't afford your first offer. You got my instincts, Brenda, he told me last Thanksgiving just 10 months ago. Naomi's got the polish, but you got the hunger. That's worth more than any degree. Naomi had been standing in the doorway. I'd seen her face go cold. After that, things changed. Dad started complaining about missing documents, contracts he couldn't find. His accountant noticed discrepancies. Nothing huge, just $50,000 here, $20,000 there. Dad asked me to look into it quietly. That's what I'd been doing at the lake house that night, going through his personal files while he was at a conference in Chicago. I'd found everything. Bank transfers to shell companies. Forged signatures. 3 years of systematic theft, totaling almost $2 million. All traced back to Naomi's personal accounts. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and expensive cologne. I stood outside Whitman and Associates on Peachtree Street, my hand trembling on the brass door handle. Inside, my family was gathering for the reading of Dad's will. Inside, Naomi was about to learn she hadn't gotten away with murder. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? She'd known I'd discovered her theft. She'd known I was coming back from the lake house that night. That bridge was on my direct route home. There were no skid marks, the police report said. No evidence I'd tried to brake or swerve. The guardrail had simply given way, rusty and neglected, and I'd plunged into the icy water below. Convenient. Very convenient for someone who stood to inherit everything if I was out of the picture. I pushed open the door. The receptionist, a young woman with box braids and sympathetic eyes, looked up from her computer. "I'm sorry, we're closed for a private." She stopped. Her mouth fell open. "Oh my God. Tell them Brenda Bennett is here for the reading," I said. My voice sounded strange, rougher than I remembered. The intubation had damaged my vocal cords. "Tell them the dead have come back to collect what's theirs." She grabbed the phone with shaking hands. Through the glass walls of the conference room I could see them. Naomi, perfectly composed in a Chanel suit. Her husband Trevor checking his Rolex. My cousin Milton, who'd always been more brother than cousin. My Aunt Diane. Dad's business partner Raymond. They all thought they were here to divide up my father's empire. They had no idea the empire was about to fight back. The conference room door opened. Gerald Whitman, Dad's attorney for 30 years, stood frozen in the doorway. He'd been at my funeral. He'd given a eulogy. Behind him I heard Naomi's voice. "Gerald, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a..." I stepped into view. The sound Naomi made wasn't quite a scream. It was something deeper, more primal. Trevor jumped to his feet, knocking over his water glass. Aunt Diane grabbed her chest. Milton just stared, his eyes filling with tears. "Hey family," I said. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was hell. You know how it is when you're supposed to be dead." Naomi's face went through 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, disbelief, joy, terror, and finally rage. The rage stayed. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "You were dead. Your car, the bridge, they found your hair." "They found a lot of things," I agreed, walking slowly to the empty chair at the head of the table. Dad's chair. The one Naomi had probably already mentally claimed. Funny thing about DNA evidence. Hair's easy to plant when you have access to someone's hairbrush. Harder to fake a whole body though. That's where your plan got messy. Plan? "Brenda, what are you?" She looked at Gerald, at Trevor, playing the confused victim. "She's clearly traumatized. The accident must have." "Cut the act, Naomi." I pulled out the chair and sat down. Every muscle in my body screamed. I'd checked out of the hospital against medical advice just 2 days ago. "We both know what you did. We both know why you needed me dead before this meeting." Gerald cleared his throat. "Miss Bennett, Brenda, I don't know what to say. This is unprecedented. The death certificate can be revoked," I said. "I'm alive. I'm here. And unless I'm mistaken, you have Dad's will to read. So let's hear it." Gerald's hands shook as he opened the leather portfolio. I should note that this will was updated 6 days before Lawrence's death. He came to me urgently, said circumstances had changed and he needed to make immediate modifications. Naomi went rigid. 6 days before Dad died. 2 days after I'd sent him the evidence of her theft from that lake house. 2 days after we'd planned to confront her together. The last will and testament of Lawrence James Bennett, dated March 15, 2024, Gerald began. His voice steadied as he fell into professional routine. "I, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this my final will, revoking all previous wills and codicils." I watched Naomi's reflection in the window. She was gripping Trevor's hand hard enough to whiten her knuckles. "To my daughter Naomi Bennett Langston, I leave the sum of $1. Gerald paused. The room went silent. "I make this minimal bequest not out of cruelty, but because she has already taken from me far more than I ever intended to give. He knows why. The evidence is with my attorney and my accountant, ready to be delivered to the district attorney should she contest this will or make any claim against my estate." Naomi's face turned purple. "That's insane. He was senile. This will is fraudulent." "I witnessed this will personally," Gerald said quietly. "Lawrence was completely lucid. He told me everything, Naomi. The embezzlement. The shell companies. The falsified documents. He gave me copies of everything Brenda found. You're lucky he loved you enough to give you this choice. Accept the dollar or face federal prosecution for wire fraud, forgery, and theft. To my beloved daughter Brenda Marie Bennett, Gerald continued, and I heard my voice crack with emotion I'd been holding back. I leave the entirety of my estate. All properties, all holdings, all investments, all cash assets. Not because she is perfect, but because she has integrity. She could have exposed her sister's crimes for revenge. Instead, she brought the evidence to me privately, hoping we could resolve this as a family. She gave Naomi a chance to make things right. Tears streamed down my face. I hadn't known he'd written that. We'd never gotten to have that confrontation. He died before we could talk to Naomi together. The estate's total value is approximately $75,400,000, Gerald said. Brenda, you inherit everything. The downtown Atlanta properties, the strip malls in Charlotte and Nashville, the luxury apartments in Miami. The investment portfolios, the business partnerships, all of it. Your father also left detailed instructions for you. He said, and I quote, Brenda, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. Run this empire better than I did. Trust your instincts. And if your sister tries to hurt you, remember, I protected you even from the grave. All the evidence of her crimes is in a safe deposit box at First National, box number 773. The key is with Gerald. Use it if you need to. I love you, baby girl. Make me proud. The room spun. $75 million. Everything. Every building, every contract, every dream Dad and I had planned together during those Saturday property tours. Naomi stood up so fast her chair fell over. This is bullshit. You faked your own death. You manipulated him. Then she grabbed her chest. Her eyes went wide. And she collapsed. Trevor was screaming. Aunt Diane was crying. Milton was on his phone calling 911. Gerald was doing chest compressions while I stood frozen, watching my sister's body convulse on the expensive carpet. Naomi, baby, stay with me. Trevor cradled her head, his perfect composure shattered. Somebody help her. Please. The paramedics arrived in 7 minutes. They loaded her onto a stretcher, started in 4, shocked her twice in the conference room. I watched like I was hovering outside my body, like this was happening to someone else. My sister, my thief, my would-be murderer, my enemy, was dying right in front of me. And I felt nothing. But that wasn't true. I felt relief. The thought horrified me. What kind of person was I becoming? You did this. Trevor screamed at me as they wheeled Naomi out. You killed her. First your father, now her. You're poison, Brenda. Poison. Milton grabbed him. Back off, man. Brenda didn't do anything. She shows up after being dead for 3 months and Naomi has a heart attack? That's not a coincidence. Trevor's face was ugly with rage. I'll sue you for this. I'll take everything. You think you've won? This isn't over. The paramedics rushed Naomi out. Trevor followed, still screaming threats. Gerald stood slowly, his knees cracking. He looked 20 years older than when I'd walked in. Brenda, I think we should postpone. No. My voice came out hard. Is the will legally binding? Yes, but... Then we're done here. I'll be in touch about the estate transfer. I grabbed my bag and walked out, leaving them all staring after me. Outside, I vomited in a trash can. Then I called a rideshare and went back to my cheap hotel room to wait for news about whether my sister would survive. And to figure out what the hell I was going to do with $75 million and a sister who wanted me dead. Naomi survived. Massive heart attack, the doctors said. Stress-induced. She'd need bypass surgery, lifestyle changes, months of recovery. Trevor posted updates on social media painting me as the villain. The cruel sister who'd come back from the dead to torture her grieving family. The comments were brutal. People who didn't know me didn't know what Naomi had done, calling me heartless, selfish, evil. Some suggested I really had faked my death for the inheritance. Others said I should have stayed dead. I should have ignored it. Should have let Trevor spin his narrative while I handled Dad's estate. But 3 days after the will reading, I found myself standing outside Naomi's hospital room at Emory, holding a bouquet of yellow roses. Her favorite. Mom used to grow them in our backyard before she died. I shouldn't have come. But I needed answers. The private room was full of flowers. Trevor sat beside the bed holding Naomi's hand. He saw me in the doorway and stood up, his face contorting. "Get out. You're not welcome here." "Trevor, it's okay." Naomi's voice was weak but clear. She looked smaller in the hospital bed, fragile. Nothing like the polished woman who'd stood at my fake funeral. "Let her in." He hesitated, then grabbed his coffee cup and pushed past me, muttering something about calling security. I waited until his footsteps faded, then stepped inside. "You look terrible," Naomi said. "You just had open heart surgery." "I look fantastic compared to you." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Then it died. "Why are you here, Brenda?" "The bridge." I set the roses on the bedside table. "Tell me about the bridge." Naomi closed her eyes. For a long moment I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "I didn't touch your car. I swear to God, Brenda. I didn't try to kill you. But you knew I'd found the evidence." "Yes." Her voice cracked. "I knew. Dad called me the day before your accident. Said we needed to talk, all three of us. Said it was about financial discrepancies and he wanted to give me a chance to explain before involving authorities. I knew it was over. I knew you'd found everything." "So you're saying what?" "It was convenient coincidence that I went off that bridge the next night." "I'm saying I wished you were dead." The words exploded out of her, raw and vicious. "I wished it every day for 3 years. Every time Dad praised you, every time he chose you over me, every time he talked about leaving you the business like I didn't exist. I'm the oldest. I'm the one who did everything right. But it was always Brenda this, Brenda that, Brenda has my instincts." She was crying now, monitors beeping faster. "So yes, when I heard about your accident I was relieved. I was grateful. I thought God had finally answered my prayers. But I didn't cause it, Brenda. I checked. I had Trevor call his buddy at the police department. The guardrail was rotted through, been that way for months. The county was supposed to fix it. Your accident was just bad luck. Terrible, convenient, perfect bad luck." I believed her. I hated that I believed her, but I did. Her rage was too real, too raw. This wasn't a killer's confession. This was a desperate woman admitting she'd wanted something awful but hadn't had the courage to make it happen. "You stole $2 million from him," I said quietly. "I needed it." "For what?" "Trevor's business was failing." Naomi's voice had gone flat, defeated. "That perfect Langston family image? It's fake. His daddy's pharmaceutical company was going under. Bad investments, FDA investigations, lawsuits. Trevor begged me for help. Said if word got out his family would be ruined. Our marriage would be over. I'd lose everything I'd worked for. The social standing, the connections, the life I'd built." She laughed bitterly. "So I started small. Just 50,000 from one of Dad's smaller accounts. He had so much money I thought he'd never notice. But then Trevor needed more. The problems kept growing. And I kept telling myself I'd pay it back. I'd fix it before Dad ever knew. Except I found out. Except you found out." She looked at me finally, her eyes red and hollow. "You were always better at the business than me. Dad knew it. I knew it. I spent my whole life trying to be perfect, trying to earn his love, his respect. And you just existed and he adored you for it. Do you know how that feels? To work so hard and still come in second to someone who isn't even trying. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Brenda. You got his attention, his pride, his entire empire. I got $1 and a heart attack. She was shouting now, monitor alarms going off. And you want me to apologize? You want me to feel guilty? Fine. I'm sorry I stole from him. I'm sorry I resented you. I'm sorry I wished you were dead. But I'm not sorry I survived just to watch you play victim while you inherit $75 million. Nurses rushed in. One of them pushed me toward the door. You need to leave. Now. I left. But Naomi's words followed me out, echoing in my head. All my life I'd thought my sister had everything. The education, the marriage, the status. I'd never realized she'd spent all those years drowning, stealing, desperate. Trevor caught me in the parking garage, grabbing my arm hard enough to bruise. Stay away from my wife. I yanked free. Get your hands off me. Or what? You'll destroy me too. He stepped closer, smelling like expensive cologne and desperation. I know what you're planning, Brenda. Naomi told me about the evidence, about the safe deposit box. You're going to use it against us, aren't you? Going to have her arrested, seize our assets, ruin us completely. I haven't decided what I'm doing yet. Then let me help you decide. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. If you pursue charges against Naomi, I'll make your life hell. I have resources you can't imagine. Family connections in law enforcement, in politics, in media. I'll leak stories about you. Drug use. Mental illness. Faking your death for attention. I'll paint you as an unstable narcissist who manipulated a dying old man into changing his will. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to show your face in Atlanta. You're threatening me. I'm protecting my wife. Something you clearly never cared about doing for your family. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. Naomi in her hospital bed, looking small and broken. She almost died because of you. Because you couldn't let go of money that should have been shared. You're so much like Lawrence, it's disgusting. Hoarding everything, keeping score, punishing people for not living up to your impossible standards. She stole $2 million. To save my family. To keep us from losing everything. He was shaking now. And you know what? I don't care. I'd steal $10 million if it meant keeping her safe. That's what love is, Brenda. Sacrifice. Protection. Not this scorched earth revenge you're planning. He turned to walk away, then stopped. You have 48 hours to decide. Drop the charges, split the inheritance fairly, and we'll leave you alone. Or press forward and I'll destroy you. I spent 2 days going through Dad's files, sitting in his office at the downtown property, surrounded by his things. His coffee mug still sat on the desk. His reading glasses. A photo of me and him at my college graduation, both of us laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. Gerald had given me the key to the safe deposit box. Inside was everything. Bank statements, forged signatures, email exchanges between Naomi and Trevor about hiding the money. Enough evidence to send her to prison for 10 to 15 years. Enough to destroy her completely. Dad had left me a choice. Use it or don't. Punish her or let it go. I thought about Naomi in that hospital bed, raging about coming in second. About Trevor's threats, his desperate protection of his wife. About Dad's last words, run this empire better than I did. Better. Not the same way. Better. I called Gerald. I want you to draft an agreement. Naomi pays back the $2 million over 20 years, interest-free. In exchange, we don't press charges. She gets to keep her freedom, her marriage, her dignity. But she stays away from the business. She gets nothing else from Dad's estate. No properties, no assets, no second chances. That's very generous, Gerald said carefully. It's not generous. It's strategic. I looked at Dad's photo. She's my sister. I can hate what she did and still not want to watch her rot in prison. But I won't let her hurt me again either. This is the boundary. He crosses it and I use the evidence. She stays on her side and we both move on. I'll draft the papers. Brenda, your father would be proud. I wasn't sure. Dad had been a fighter, a man who never forgot a betrayal. But he'd also loved Naomi even when she hurt him. Maybe this was the balance he'd wanted me to find. Maybe this was me finally understanding that having power means choosing when not to use it. The Bennett building gleamed in the afternoon sun, 40 stories of glass and steel in the heart of downtown Atlanta. I stood in the penthouse office, Dad's office now mine, looking out at the city he'd conquered. 6 months since I'd walked into that will reading. 6 months since everything changed. Naomi signed the agreement. Trevor stopped threatening. They moved to Charlotte, taking jobs at one of Trevor's cousin's companies. Naomi sends a check every month, paying back what she stole. We don't speak, but I see her social media posts sometimes. She looks happier now, away from Atlanta's scrutiny. Away from me. Milton runs the property management division. Aunt Diane oversees the charity foundation I established in Dad's name. Raymond retired, set for life from his share of the business partnerships. I promoted 3 new executives from within the company, people Dad had trained who understood his vision. The empire hasn't just survived. It's growing. But the best part? Last week I endowed a scholarship fund at Spelman, the Naomi Bennett Langston Scholarship for first-generation business students. Full ride for years, awarded annually to a young woman who needs a second chance. I sent Naomi the announcement. She called me for the first time in 6 months. Why? Her voice was thick with tears. Because you were right, I said. Dad should have seen you. Should have valued your strengths instead of comparing us. I can't fix what he did wrong, but I can make sure other women don't feel invisible. Brenda. I'm not doing this for you, I interrupted. I'm doing it because it's right. That's the difference between us. I'm going to run this empire better than Dad did. Better means being fair even when it hurts. I hung up before she could respond. Looked back at the city stretched below me. Somewhere out there, girls were dreaming of building something that mattered, of being seen, of mattering. Dad left me more than money. He left me a choice about what kind of person I wanted to be. I chose better. The dead girl came back to life, inherited a fortune, and learned that the real power isn't in the money you keep. It's in knowing when to let go. And I'm just getting started. Thank you for staying with this story to the end. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your own stories in the comments. You're not alone.